People need an income that's guaranteed to them.
If you lose money to taxes, you're never getting that money back.
You need to get serious about adding some lower risk.
Greed. I don't like greed.
The thing to be afraid of, honestly, is the thing that we're not thinking of, the black swan event.
There's a tsunami coming. Bye.
Welcome to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers.
Just coffee talk.
There's a lot of noise, a lot of chatter. Who do you listen to? Who do you not listen to? You have to stay focused.
A fun and informative look at the issues of wealth, retirement, and protecting your life savings.
These advisors out there that were trained to sell, and have all these fees. They don't want to talk about this product, so they make less money.
And now, Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers.
Hello again and welcome to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers at Zinnia Wealth. Online, find us, zinniawealth.com. That's Z-I-N-N-I-A wealth.com. And who will you find there? Charisse Rivers and her team. And I'm glad you're here today because that's exactly who's here. Charisse, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. How are you doing, Randy?
I'm all right. We've gone through some cold and we've gone through some rain and we've gone through, I'm hoping we're moving on to some warmer weather here a little bit. Had a bit of a cold spell, didn't we?
We did. Cold, it gets very cold. But you know when it is here, I do kind of enjoy it, but I don't want it for very long. Just give me a little bit and go away. But then don't turn into an 80-degree afternoon. Like, can we just stay in the 70s, early, like 72? I would love that.
It's a weird time of year, that is for sure. But.
Well, and it's also a weird time of year because we have all the election worries and noise out there. I mean, did you watch the Iowa caucus?
I did. I watched New Hampshire. I watched Iowa. I was, kind of with interest here. Is Nikki Haley going to crush through? But looks like Trump has still got a pretty good hold on it all.
I know. Nikki Haley, she's pretty cool. But you know what? Change needs to happen. And the one thing that I realized, Trump won 98 out of 99 counties.
I know it.
This race is not about who's Democrat and who's a Republican. Like, it really isn't. It's about people being fed up at this point.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that's where we're at. And it's interesting because I'm just seeing people kind of come together more and more. Mm-hmm. So I think this election is not going to be about people on Facebook not being friends anymore. I think we're all we want change and we're tired of being fed up. And I just think we are in a time zone we've never seen before. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see what comes of all of this. But anyways, we're not allowed to talk about elections, are we, on radio?
Sure we can. Why not? No, I actually looked at a stat that I found really interesting that I saw this week, and that was they went back to 1952, and they said in that period of time, less 70 years or so, how many times has the market gone down in an election year? 70 years, okay? 3 times. I was shocked.
Yeah, I wasn't.
Everybody gets all upset about, it's an election year. What am I going to do with my investments? But at the same time, if you look at statistics, usually an election year is just a blip on the radar screen, not a big deal. So
and you know what it is unfortunately, this happens more lately than not. Hope sometimes drives Wall Street and the markets. Yeah. And the people who are about to be elected, they don't want the market to go down. So it's an interesting evolution, right? And then when the markets are ready to go down, we typically see it about 6 to 12 months after the election, right? Not saying that's going to happen, but we're just in a different time, different economy, different stressors. I mean, Germany, we got workers on strike over there. We've got war. We got Israel. I mean, it's beyond me. Interest rates, we're trying to get down to like 2% inflation, which is idiotic, and it won't happen. And then we're going to have a bust if they even tried hard enough. I mean, there's just inflation and deflation, and there's good and bad inflation and deflation. And it's very confusing to people out there that are just turning on the TV and you're listening to Kramer, you're listening to Fox, you're listening to CNN, you're listening to Squawk Box, and all that noise will absolutely help you make the worst decisions in life. Really? Because then it attacks our emotions. Oh yeah, that's right. Then you hear something else. What's that? Oh, what? No. Yeah. Do we or don't we? And so I feel everybody. We keep our emotions pretty intact here at Zinnia Wealth, and we try not to take ever a biased approach to anything. And we just stay right in the middle, and we just make sure our clients' portfolios are exactly where they need to be at this phase of life that they're in, and with constant income income checks, right?
Well,
ebbs and flows, changing every year, the tax plan, that kind of stuff.
Well, we talk about it all the time. The market can only do three things: go up, go down, go sideways, and we want to build a plan for all three. So, well, let's go to some of these people on Wall Street and what they have to say. Charisse gave us a little tease there about interest rates, and the Fed still are going to have their effect on the market this year, and the Fed hopes that they can get the inflation down to 2%. And Wall Street hopes that they're going to start lowering interest rates soon. Well, Peter Schiff is an interesting guy. He's an economist. He's got a podcast, and I went through that. And here's what he has to say about the Fed and interest rates in 2024.
The markets are looking at the resurgence in inflation, and their conclusion is, okay, the Fed's just going to have to fight a little harder to win this battle. No. What we're seeing is proof that the Fed has already lost. Inflation won. The Fed can't possibly raise rates high enough to reduce inflation without crippling the economy, without creating a worse financial crisis than 2008. Those days of really low inflation, they're gone. We're not going back to 2%, not even close. We're going to be much higher.
All right. So let's give the Fed a little bit of credit. We did go from 9% down to 3%. So they did get it down that far. But their fixation with 2% is what Peter Schiff is talking about here. And if they want to raise interest rates to try to get to 2%, he thinks that's going to be a disaster. So your thoughts on that? Any truth there?
Well, Peter Schiff is definitely full of Schiff. Okay, you got to love to hate this guy, right? If you ever listen to his podcast, like after half an hour, you're like, I'm done. But you know what? He has incredible, valuable information. Believe it or not, I've been following this guy for 20 years.
Wow.
From the first day I did one of my money shows back in the day, and in Orlando, and he was there, and I was like, this guy's a wacko, but there's something interesting about him. So I'll tune in every once in a while. I'm like, oh, come on, do we have to go down this road? I'm like, I can't listen. But some of the stuff he said is absolutely valuable. Okay. And pumping the brakes and getting that inflation down to 2%, come on. I mean, really?
We're going to have
to live with 3. How long is that even
3?
sustainable?
Yeah.
And you know what's going to happen? The government's going to redefine what inflation is, right? Go. Just like they said, we're going to redefine what a recession is, or, you know, what they did in Investopedia, if I recall. And then, you know, and then they're going to redefine it. Well, this isn't included. This isn't included. But it's unfair because people feel it in gas. We feel it in our food. So if you want to talk about inflation, it's calmed down, but it has not changed the way we live at the grocery store. I mean, how many of you go grocery shopping every time you're like, inflation, sedation still? When is this stuff going to crack down? So, you know, it's going to take time. I'm like, think about like cars out there, like EV cars, Tesla. Oh, Tesla just had they're having I won't say a word about it, but anyways, if you ever wanted to buy Tesla, give it a little bit more time. It might be a good time to buy. Okay. But the prices of the Tesla cars are really expensive, but a lot of competition's coming around, right? And so over the next 5 years, you know, maybe 50% of the world has EV cars. Therefore, we're going to have deflation on the price on those cars, right? So there's good deflation, bad deflation, good inflation, bad inflation, right? Lots of words here. Nevertheless, you need to make sure when it comes to the interest rate environment, and we talk about this all the time, we have to have a comprehensive, holistic, written plan that, number one, we figure out what your inventory is first and foremost. Where have you saved? How much debt do you have? What's your guaranteed income? What's your non-guaranteed income, right? And then we build this sustainable inflation-protected plan, right? So you can keep up with inflation, no matter if it's 2% or if it's 10%, right? That is the plan. And that is the goal when you're working here with us, because if we don't include inflation in your plan and you're not taking out extra dollars to cover inflation, you're going to be quite surprised what happens in the future to your dollars being eroded. So you got to have a plan worked in to make sure it works, right? So be careful with inflation, be careful with the interest rates and understanding the semantics and the rules. Just make sure that you're working with an advisory team that understands it, that implements it, that adjusts it on an annual basis, and you see it on paper. It's a comprehensive plan, and that's what you need, especially going into retirement. Because if you guys remember back in the day, you could be in any mutual fund in the country and you were making 17%. but I bet you can't do that now. And you're like, why don't I have the same returns? Things are changing. You got to evolve with the changes.
Well, one of the things that we look at in 2024, we mentioned the election year. Is that going to affect things? Maybe, but historically, you look at the numbers, maybe not. So then people look at the Fed. They look at the interest rate. Is that what is going to be the market mover this year? Maybe, maybe not. The Fed can't seem to get to 2%, so Wall Street believes, like we talk about Wall Street like it's a person. Wall Street seems to believe that they're going to start cutting rates very soon, and they're going to be real aggressive about it. Well, maybe not. So let's go to a guy who's been on Wall Street and has been watching this for 50, 60 years. Leon Cooperman started with Goldman Sachs and did a marvelous job there and had a great career there, then started out on his own. He's a money manager. This is his thought about the Fed and interest rates and the market in 2024.
I think those who are looking for 6 rate cuts are smoking some substance. I think if you got 3, you would be lucky. We're heading towards a financial crisis, but nobody knows when it's going to hit.
Okay. All right. So when somebody says something like that, it gets your attention. What does that mean, Charisse? Does that mean another 2008? Does that mean a 20, 30, 40% pullback? When someone uses the words financial crisis, and that's in our future, how do we absorb that? What does it mean?
It means people are going to lose jobs. People are going to be spending their 401ks when they're supposed to be saving it. It means that there's going to be a lot of changes, right? Because when there's big recessions, big crashes like that, companies have to fire, right? That's what happens. So big change for companies, big changes for the normal person that pulls up their pants every day. And when it comes to the crash territory, we don't know. But I mean, if you go back to 2000, 2001, 2002, it took 33 months for the market to finally bottom out. That was massive. And then it took 5 years to get back to even. I can't tell you if we're going to have a 3-year decline or a 1.5-year decline. All I know is the climb out. When you're climbing out of this deep hole, it's always the same. It's about 4 to 5 years before you get back to even. So here's the deal. If you are working, this is an absolute wealth building period, and you should be excited. The financial conventional wisdom out there says, do not sell, buy and hold. And that is so true. So as long as you still have a job and you can work and you haven't been fired because of a big crash, you keep contributing to that 401k every 2 weeks. And my advice is you contribute double the amount because you are buying lower stocks at lower prices every 2 weeks as that 3-year period, the market's going down. And also as the market is coming up for 5 years, you are buying stocks on sale. So it's a wealth building time period for the young people, right? But it is not a wealth building period for retirees. So now, we're living on our money now. You lose 50%, you have to make 100%. You got $1 million, you just lost 50%, now you have 500,000, right? If you make 50% after the final drop, you're not back to your 100%. Like I had a gentleman come into my office just the other day. And he was giddy. He was clicking his heels. He got out of his seat and he came up to my TV screen and said, "What? I didn't know this about sequence of returns." I said, "You never heard of sequence returns?" He's like, "No." I said, "Well, you're not the only one. Nobody's really heard about it." And I said, "I've learned this from gurus at big colleges. And now I'm applying it and showing our clients." And then we build the income plan. And the income plan, he went, "What? I can do this?" Because literally 20 minutes before that, he said, "Charisse, I really want to keep all my money in the stock market. I'm okay with a lot of risk." I said, "Okay, great. Let's do that. Let me show you the risk profile. Let me show you sequence return.
Let's run the numbers.
Let's run the numbers." And he went, his jaw dropped. He went, "So you're telling me that I shouldn't have all my money in the market?" I'm like, "No, you can do what you want.
Nice.
I'm just showing you what you need to do." And then we do the income plan. I've just never had somebody this excited. He was like, "What?" He kept going, "What?" He was just ecstatic. And then we did the income plan. He's like, "Wait a minute. So I don't have to have all of my money in the market and I'm still going to have double what I have today." I went, "Yes, you've got it." As long as you don't lose 50%, we're going to make it in retirement. And I said, "But I love having money in the stock market. I like structured notes. I like CDs. I like annuities. I like stock markets. I love dividends. I like active management." I'm like, let's do it all, right? It's that simple. And let's be balanced because you know what? The 60-40 portfolio, you all, is old school and it's not going to work the way it used to work.
Well, I think that's a great story of what could happen to you if you walk in the door, and just the idea of let's do the math on your retirement. It's a phrase that we've used over and over and over through the over 10 years that we've been on the radio here, and just saying, come on in and let's put the pencil to the paper. Let's do the math on your retirement. What if you could find out you could retire right now? What if you could find out I don't have to have that much money in the stock market? I can go to other places and be just fine. Those are the kind of meetings that we really love to have at Zinnia Wealth, and we would love to have that kind of meeting with you. Give us a look on our website, which is zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. There's a gold box there. It says complimentary retirement consultation. That's exactly what it is. It's a meeting to get to know you, find out what you've done to save for retirement, and what is it going to look like in retirement. What's your paycheck going to look like, and how much money is at risk, and what can we do about that? You can also give us a call, 833-368-3680, 833-368-3680. We'll be right back with more Retirement Coffee Talk. Welcome back to Retirement Coffee Talk with Sharice Rivers at Zinnia Wealth. Online, find us, zinniawealth.com. And while you're there, up at the top navigation bar, you're going to see education. You can click on that, and then useful guides. There's all sorts of things you can download there. I'll bet there's a situation there, if it's Medicare, if it's 401ks, if it's RMDs, whatever you're going through right now and questioning, we got something there for you as a resource. And then check our media tab as well. All the podcasts are there, interviews that Sharice has had with celebrities and more. It's all right there. So if you want to hear more of Retirement Coffee Talk, it's real easy for you right there. All right, so we all know comedian Ron White from the Blue Collar Comedy Crew with Jeff Foxworthy and Larry the Cable Guy. Well, Ron retired in January of 2022. And now he's back. So he's out there on the road again in 2024. And Ron actually, in one of his latest shows, talked about him, the IRS, and taxes.
I owe the IRS a bunch of money because I don't understand how that works. It's confusing. When I started doing stand-up, they said that made me an independent contractor, and they said I needed to start filing my taxes quarterly, which I thought meant every 25 years.
That's funny.
Oops. So taxes are pretty complicated for all of us, not just Ron White. And this is a question I'm sure, Sharice, as you go through the meetings and you say, okay, we'll get our investments in line and we'll figure out what the risk level is. We'll get your income going like that. And now we have to start talking about taxes, don't we?
We do. And when you come to my classes, I preach this. But when you come into our office, it starts with a tax plan. I'm already from the first second, or any of the advisors, the second they're sitting with you, thinking of, okay, we got to work on taxes. We're already in our minds, writing things down. And first appointment, we're already thinking of things that they need to do and work on. Second appointment, usually we present it along with some other things. But I will say, we don't do your QuickBooks. We don't do,
don't do tax returns.
Taxes returns. That's what we hire our CPAs for. But we do the actual tax plan, because CPAs usually don't do the tax plan. And there's a lot involved when it comes to the actual tax plan. And every household, believe it or not, Randy, is different. So if your neighbor Bubba comes in and they do something, I'm sure yours is going to be totally different, even though you want to do what Bubba does, but it might not be the best strategy for you, right? And everybody's going to be different. And it depends where you saved your money. So we're a wealth management firm, right? Our plan is, before we even talk about your assets, before we start building your income, is to see where your taxes are. How can we help with them now and in the future? And how can we maybe even lower them in the future? Once we figure out the tax plan, then we can work on that income plan that we just talked about on the last episode. And once we build that income plan, then we can talk about the investment plan, right? You never start with the investment plan first. Never, ever, ever. And I don't know how many people sit with new advisors and they're looking at your statements and they're already telling you what they can promise you, but that's not how it works, right? Tax plan first, right? And if we can't do anything, okay, then we are where we are. Then the income plan, then we know what you need and how much risk you can take. Then we talk about the investment plan, right? Does that make sense to you, Randy?
Totally. And I think that as we go through our working years, when you think about taxes, It's what comes out of your check every 2 weeks. It's what you have to pay if you have to pay when you do your tax return. That's taxes to us, April 15th and on our check. But when you get into retirement, it all changes. I mean, there's capital gains taxes, there's RMD taxes, there's all these different things. And we have, it's like a learning curve that we have to understand. This is a new phase of life, as you say all the time, Cherise, and it's a new phase of life in taxes.
Well, what about the RMD phase, required minimum distribution phase? Like, if you're 73 right now, you have to take money out of your IRAs and all of your retirement accounts. You're forced to. You're not forced to spend it. You're just forced to take it and pay the taxes on it. And do you know, as you get older, man, the government's amazing. They make you take more out, a higher percent every year. It doesn't just start at 3.65. By the time you're in your 80s, you're pulling out 8%. So that's a gotcha, right?
Yeah.
And you're thinking, I'm 80 years old. I don't need more money now. I actually need to just save it or leave it. And now you're forced to still take it. So the system's really backwards. But a fun question came in this week about their RMDs. So a lady called in and said, I turned 73 last year, Cherise, and I didn't take my RMD. What can I do? And I said, well, you get a one-time exclusion. Very first time, you can never do it again. And this only happens when you're 73. So for example, for this lady, she turned 73 last year. And most people say, well, you turn 73, by the end of the year, December 31st, you have to take your RMD or you got this massive 50% penalty, which is now 25%, just so you all know. Okay. But the rule is, it's a gotcha, another gotcha from Uncle Sam. Technically, you actually could take your RMD this year in 2024, April 1st. Hey, that happens to be April Fool's Day, right?
So is that last year's RMD, and then you have to take another one before the end of the year?
So if you miss it, don't cry about it, because you can actually take it. You just have to take it by April 1st this year. But here's the rule. If you take it by April 1st this year, you'll have to take another one by end of this year, December 31st. Okay. And all years thereafter, all subsequent years, you just make sure you don't forget it. You put it on autopilot. If you're doing it on your own, just say, tell the firm you're with, if you're managing your own money, okay, I'm going to take my RMDs. Hey, withhold 10%. 15% taxes, whatever you want, or don't withhold taxes. And every year, like clockwork, that check will show up. So that's if you're going on your own with this, because a lot of people who go on their own actually make mistakes when it comes to this phase of life, and you don't want to miss it.
Should you always take it at the end of the year, or does it make sense to take it in the middle of the year?
Right.
Should that change?
Well, some of our clients, what they'll do is some of them say, hey, I want a monthly check. So what we'll do is we'll just start it in January, and they'll get a monthly check starting in January, and that RMD is to split up over the next 12 months.
Okay.
You can do it that way. You can do it semi-annually. You can do it any time throughout the year, really. But you got to get it done by December 31st, and do not wait till then. Do not make sure you're sending your paperwork in at least by December 1st. And I'm going to tell you, it's a steep penalty. Thankfully, the government dropped it from all these years. The penalty was 50%. That means if you had $1 million, you had to take 40,000 out. You basically gave 50% to the government by missing it by one day. So now the penalty has been dropped to 25%. And if you pay it in a timely manner, which is, I think, within 12 months of when you get your statement, if I recall, they drop it to 10. So we don't want to forget it. We don't want to give $1 back. We're already having to pay the tax bill on this stuff. So this is, I think, the government's interesting, funny, jokes. April Fool's Day. Why that day? I don't know, but there you go.
All right.
So to that listener, you can take it, and then moving forward. So let's say you're 75 today, for example. You should have already been putting it on autopilot, whether you're working with a financial advisor or yourself, and you should be getting it from all your different companies every year, monthly, however you have it set up. But do remember this. Let's say you have an annuity. Let's say you have a mutual fund and you have a CD, and all three of those are IRAs. You can take your RMDs out of every one of them, or you can take the total out of just one of them. And so my story is, don't take the saddle off the horse that's winning the race. So if you got an annuity making 4, a mutual fund making 7, which is not, well, maybe ended last year it did, and then a CD making 2, well, we would want to pull it from the CD, right? Let the other stuff compound. So, and I have to say, it's not cookie cutter. Not everybody as households does it work that way, but just food for thought if you're going alone in retirement and trying to figure this stuff out. We'd like to give free information.
It is so good to have that financial planner, that retirement planner on your side, so they can walk you through this and hold your hand along the way. And it can get complex, and if you make a mistake, it can be costly. So good to have somebody on your side, and that's really why we have this show, is to introduce you to Charisse, who can help you with this. Give us a look online, zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com, or give us a call at 833-368-3680, and we'll do that portfolio x-ray for you, get you a real good look at where you are right now and how we might be able to help. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, you remember the lesson Mom and Dad said, don't touch the hot stove, and then you touch the hot stove. It was a hard lesson. Well, you know what? Uncle Sam and the financial industry are still trying to use that lesson on you. We'll tell you how and how to get around it. Coming up next on Retirement Coffee Talk. Welcome back to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers at Zinnia Wealth. Online, find us, zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. If it's time to talk about your retirement, well, we are here. And a great way to start that conversation is to hit that gold box on our website. It says complimentary retirement consultation. That's exactly what it is. It's a free meeting to sit down and talk about your concerns, get to know you, and how we may be able to help. Again, zinniawealth.com is our website. All right, so I got to ask you about this, because when people were doing their New Year's resolutions, some people were talking about, I'm going to try this cold plunge thing, jumping in a bathtub full of ice and cold water. And you tried this week?
Yes. So, backstory, last year, I was starting to get, at the beginning of the year, get into, okay, I got to go buy a cold plunge. I got to do this thing. So it's good for your joints, bones, your brain. Like, it's supposed to be great, right? This cold plunge thing.
Okay.
So, my cold plunges consistent of a cold shower. I'm like, I'm not going to go buy one of those things. Come on. And I'm probably only going to use it for like 5 days and say, forget this. So I was shortly lived. My cold shower stopped after probably the first quarter or second quarter of last year. So for some reason this year I said, you know what, I'm going to commit. And I had to watch something on YouTube about one of the wrestlers out there and their injuries and what they did. And I said, you know what, maybe it's time I actually listen to some of the stuff I'm watching.
Okay.
And I wasn't sure how to do it, but I did know I did not want to go buy it, because where am I going to put this big thing, right? So what I learned is that you don't have to go buy the expensive stuff to make this happen. So I got a bathtub, right? And I put a 16-pound bag of ice in there, let it sit there for an hour. Came back, the ice was melted. The water was 56 degrees, and that's where you want it. You want it in the 50s. And as soon as I looked at it, I'm like, don't you talk yourself out of this year. You get in there, you get in there. And I literally jumped in, and I went all the way under, except all the way to my neck. I was like, oh my gosh, I was breathing like when I was in labor, and you're going, hee hee hoo hoo, like you're seriously like deep breaths. I'm like, if I don't control my breathing, I am going to pass out in here. So I was like, breathe in, breathe out. And literally, you're supposed to do it for 3 minutes. I'm telling you guys this funny story, because I think it was pretty cool that I actually did it.
Wow.
And so after 1 minute, your body got used to it, and like, it didn't bother you. You're like, okay. And the 3-minute alarm went up, and I'm like, I could go longer. I'm like, nope, get out.
Yeah.
So anyways, it's supposed to give you like this surge energy, and it's so good for your body. And I went, oh my gosh, I could probably do this 5 days a week. No problem. It was easier than I thought. And I feared it. Nobody wants to do anything that they fear, right? We fear financial advisors. We fear cold plunges. No, I don't trust financial advisors anymore. Listen, you can trust some of us, but I got to tell you, this cold plunge is great. Okay. And hey, when I'm 99 years old, I'm going to prove to everybody my joints are good and I'm wrinkle free, right? Because of cold plunges. We'll see. Okay. There's my one off.
I'm just telling you, when you're 99, I'm not doing this show with you, okay? Because I will be wrinkly. All right.
Oh boy, oh boy.
Okay. All right.
If I'm only blessed enough to make it to 99.
All right. Well, one thing you will find when you meet with Charisse, you will be awake. That is for sure. Okay. All right. Let's talk about 401ks for a second, because I found an article in a study that kind of took me back. This is from BlackRock, and, you know, they're a big company that have lots of assets under management. They're very market-oriented. And they basically said if you shift your investments around once or twice a year to the best-performing sectors, you can result in some big gains. So they're saying, what I'm talking here about is rebalancing. How often every year should you rebalance? And this is where I went, holy cow. The Wall Street Journal found that making yearly changes between 2020 and now would have yielded a compound annual return of 55% almost 4 times more than a buy and hold strategy in the S&P 500. 55%, 4 times more than a person who does buy and hold. Those are big numbers.
You know what? They're looking. Here's the deal. Who wrote this?
This Wall Street Journal.
Wall Street Journal. Okay, we're going to crack on them. Wally, we got to have some conversations because, okay, there is value here without a shadow of doubt. So when you're reading this article, it says check your 401k, right? Yeah. Shifting investments once or twice a year to the best performing sectors. Really? Do you think people in 401ks have more than 20 to 30 options that they can just shift their sectors? No, They don't have sector type portfolios. Sectors mean financials, right? When's the last time you saw a financial mutual fund or target fund, right?
Or utilities and all these different places.
Yeah.
I don't have that in my 401k.
No, you don't have that. So it's so misleading because now everybody's like panicking. Oh, I should do this. Oh, I need to do this. And you know what's going to happen? You're going to go on your own. You're going to shift this in your 401k and you're not going to get the sectors right because you got to know what sectors are the leading sectors. And if you're looking at the sectors that have done good, well, you could have just missed the run up and the sectors are changing again. So it's the noise drives me absolutely insane because people live for this and they start doing it themselves. And then this is how they lose. So, but I do want you to know from 2020 to now, shifting into the right sectors, you would have had that amount of gain. But guess what? Nobody in the country did it. Even the best sector rotation companies, because then you got to get out of them at the perfect time and get in them in the perfect time.
Are they cherry picking a little bit here? Because if you look at the bottom of 2020, which was right after COVID, we shot up like a rocket after that. And to me, from then till today, and I know that we had a little, blip in 2022 where we didn't move much, but you're actually cherry picking an era here and saying if you did this, you'd get that. And that's another danger, I think, when looking back at history.
It is. And so just so you guys know, we have a buy and hold portfolio. Fisher, Eddie, James, Edelman, all those guys out there. It's really more of a buy and hold. We have one of those, and we do it with stocks and really good, classy dividend stocks and some of the really high flyers that we feel like are going to be here for 30 years, right? And so that's a different portfolio. But we also do have, just so you know, we do have a sector rotation portfolio. It is my baby. I stamp my approval on it. I make all these decisions, and it's something that I've just been doing for a long time. So there's something to sector rotations to maintain as much growth as possible during bobbly times, even though you can still lose, but trying to find the best sectors. So there's a value in that. And large cap is not a sector. Small cap is not a sector. For example, somebody came into the Village's office just the other day, and they've been with this advisor for 2 years. And they say they pay him 1.25% a year. And on top of that, they said he's only made one change in 2 years. So I looked at the portfolio, and the first thing I looked at, and I went CQQQ. And there's QQQ, MQQ, all these different QQQs. These are NASDAQ, really risky stuff, right? Technology. And I said, this should have been sold a year ago exactly. And I said, he hasn't done anything with it. And they lost over half. And I said, what are you paying a 1.25% fee for? They went, well, that's why we're here, because we're noticing we made a little, not a whole lot. And there was like 4 other funds. I said, this is a buy and hold advisor, and he should have sold 4 of these over a year ago. And the fact that they're still sitting there was really disappointing. And that client should have never had that. That was a China fund. I would, what? I was trying. So one thing that I don't do, because they've come in a few times, is the first appointment or 2, I'm not dogging anybody. When I break into that portfolio, we start making changes is when, okay, now you got to know really what's going on here, because I want to earn your respect in your business by showing you what we need to do and all the different things that we can provide. Later on, we'll start beating things up, right?
Well,
that's the way it's supposed to be.
Stop right there for just a second, because I think that's an important point, that somebody might believe that if they come in to see you, that you're just going to rip and tear their entire portfolio apart because you're going to do your thing. And that's not the case at all. It's an evaluation of what you have, and we're going to identify places where we can improve. Now, you saw that places there that there's some things that should have been done that maybe can be done, But we're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater here. I think that's an important point to make.
It is. And I waited till they committed to work with us to then say, okay, so here's the bad news. We took the loss and this one isn't coming back up for 5 years. We got to take it. And I'll tell you why. And we talked about that fund. And so that's how I prefer to do business. You know, it's none of my business what other people do. It's my business to know what I do and how I can help you.
Sure.
And I believe in that. I mean, that is like, this is how we survive and we thrive in this business, is doing the right thing and educating you first, right? We're not twisting your arms here at Zinnia. And I'll tell you, if anybody is, you better let me know.
That's a red flag, that's for sure.
Yeah.
You're listening to Retirement Coffee Talk with Sharice Rivers at Zinnia Wealth. We'll do that free complimentary retirement consultation for you. We'll take a look at what you have, and it's not like we're going to take, like the old Coyote TNT and blow the thing up on a Roadrunner cartoon. That's not what we do here. We're going to take a look at what's working, what's not working, make those suggestions, and work through it together. Give us a look on our website. It's zinniawealth.com. You can click on that button that says complimentary retirement consultation and go from there. Or give us a call at 833-368-3680. That's 833-368-3680. All right, when you were a little kid and you could finally reach up on top of the stove, your mom was, don't touch the hot stove. And she made you slap your hand. And then maybe did it a third time or a fourth time. And then she said, well, you know what? If you touch the hot stove, you're going to find out why. And if you did it, you know why. It was a hard lesson to learn. So the hot stove lesson is something we all know. Well, apparently the hot stove lesson is still alive and well in the financial industry and the government. Think about this. You have been saving money in a 401k all these years. But the financial industry says to you, oh, don't touch it. Don't touch it, because if you touch it before 59 and a half, you pay a 10% penalty. Hot stove. Don't touch it. Then after 59 and a half, you say, well, maybe I can get into my money now. There's no more penalty. And the government says, oh, no. Hot stove, hot stove. Don't touch it until you're 73. That's when you should start taking your money. So you look at yourself in the mirror and you go, I've been saving this money. I want to get into it. And everybody tells me it's a hot stove and I can't touch it. Sharice, it just doesn't seem right.
It's a hot stove, Randy. You can't touch it. Okay? They tell you that at Chili's when they bring the fajitas. Don't touch this. It's hot. And I'm like,
that's right. It's a hot plate. Yeah,
right?
You're right.
Well, it's funny. You know, it's funny, but people do touch those 401ks early when it's emergencies. They need it, right?
Okay.
So the moral of the story here, I think, is what you're trying to say, Randy, is you can touch your 401ks. When you're 59 and a half, you don't have any more penalties. You can take whatever you want out and live on those dollars. You just have to pay the tax man on those dollars you pull out.
Okay.
You don't have to wait to 73 when you are required to do it. And a lot of people are nervous taking money from their IRAs and 401ks, or they're just said, no, you need to save this because you have the potential of running out of money. No. You are in retirement, and the first 10 to 15 years are your glory years in retirement. You have permission to spend, but you're not going to know if you can spend unless you come in for an income plan and you see it on paper so we can see how much you can spend, because I encourage every single last person who comes to my office. We start their income plan and we look at it and they tell me what they need in income. I've already figured out what they need in income. And at the end of the day, when we see all these assets left over 30 years later based on their needs, and I said, you got one problem. They're like, what's that? You're not living on enough money, right? Do you really intend to leave this much money in 30 years? They're like, no, not really. I'm like, then let's spend some earlier. And so even some of those people out there that do not have as much money left over 30 years later, we still want you to spend during your go-go years because it is your healthiest. There is no guarantee when you're going to pass away. And we want to enjoy the fruits of our labors because you've worked your tails off and you deserve it. But we want to make sure you don't run out of money. So for all types of people that walk in our office, we have a plan, right? And if you follow the plan, it's going to work out pretty well at the end of the day. In our opinions, we've been doing this for years, right? And that's because the plan works if you stick to the plan. And we front load your go-go years. Your go-go years, you're going to go. Let's go. Plan something, right?
I heard somebody the other day on a podcast, Sharice, say, why waste the youth of your senior years? I thought, wow, what a great phrase. The youth of your senior years. When you're in your 60s and your mid 70s, early 70s, this is the youth of your senior years. You got to enjoy it.
Perfectly said.
And in order to enjoy it, we got to dip into that 401k. Well, maybe we don't have to, but that is one of the options that we have to look at. So, let's get the financial oven mitts on here and get away from the hot stove.
Right.
And use that money.
Well, exactly. So a lot of people also get pensions. We love when people have pensions. It's this guaranteed money, never run out once you start to take it. It's a lovely thing. But more and more people, Randy, are taking the lump sum and rolling the pension lump sum over to an IRA, and they're still feeling like they can't touch the hot stove. And I'm going to tell you, you can roll those over to an IRA. We can create a pension on some of that money if you wanted to, or we can have a withdrawal strategy so that you can live on the money for the long run. And, I will say, somebody came in the other day and was talking about their pension and their 401k. And was like, what do you think about ESG and my 401ks and the pension plans, et cetera? And I went, you should not have any kind of ESG in your pension plan, because the state of Florida took $450 billion plus out of the BlackRock funds with all these retirement accounts. So you don't have to worry about that. So that's old news. And they're like, okay, so I'm not forced to now put the money in the IRA and then put ESG, because I heard ESG funds were going to blah, 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 and they're going to put them in 401ks. I went, nope, you're good to go. You get to do whatever you want. So let's figure out this plan. So 401ks or pensions, the money is there for you to use. You've been saving your whole life, working off this paycheck you got every 2 weeks, and you've been saving every 2 weeks, and you've been budgeting for this day. So let's enjoy the day and enter retirement stress-free if you can.
Well, we don't want that hot stove in our retirement. We want to get at our money. We want to enjoy our money, and we want to know how to do it. And that takes a financial plan. It takes an income plan, and that's exactly what Charisse does for you. We do that for you at no charge. Give us a call. Give us a look on our website, zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. or 833-368-3680. We're actually coming up on a big year for baby boomers this year. We'll tell you more about that coming up next on Retirement Coffee Talk. Welcome back to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers at Zinnia Wealth. Online at zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. Remember our podcast, too. If you're hearing this show and you got to get out of the car, that's okay. You can listen to this show and many more off our website, on our podcast. You can go to zinniawealth.com, hit the media page. It's all there for you. Or use iTunes, Spotify, or Google Podcasts, and you can find it there as well. All right, so if you were born in 1959, there's a lot of baby boomers this year that are all turning 65, and they're going to have to look at Medicare. If you were born in 1957, that is the peak of the baby boom, and there are more people that will hit full retirement age this year than any other year. They'll all be turning 66, 67. So, Charisse, this brings along a lot of different questions, and these baby boomers are going to be looking for help with retirement. Some of them have businesses, and it is estimated there's trillions of dollars in businesses that will be sold to fund retirements this year. Now, that brings up a lot of different questions, and you don't want your income to spike. Like, say you sell your business for $1 million. Now there's $1 million this 1 year on your tax return, and that screws everything up. So what do we do, Charisse? We talk about our deferred tax strategy here. This is something you're helping people with. Talk me through a little bit of that.
Yes. I mean, I have, I just sat with a doctor and our trustee and attorney just this past week. It seems like every week I'm having these conversations where they're selling their businesses or they're part of a conglomerate and they have shares and there's about to be turnover. Another private equity firm is going to buy out another private equity firm, and they have access to sell the stuff at that point finally. And so there's a lot of dollars coming to the system, whether you're in deals like that or you're selling your companies. And the horrible part is that you got a very big tax bill on it, right? And the question is how do we keep that money back in our own pockets? If you have a $5 million sale of a business or stock offering, how do we not pay 24 to 28% in capital gains on that, right? On all the growth. And that's, good couple million and over $1 million in capital gains taxes, right? So the moral of the story is, how do we keep that $1 million or $2 million from Uncle Sam and keep it in your pocket? So I'm going to do quick math. You have $5 million. Let's say your capital gains were $2 million. So you keep $3 million. That is just dumb to me. And really, truly, in my opinion, it is so silly. And I've been trying to find solutions to this problem for years. So we have it. And it's been used for 26 years. And it's a really cool tool, and very few advisors ever in their lives get to hear about it, see it, or use it. And so I was approached, and I was one of the lucky ones. So here's the deal. What if you could keep that $2 million and not pay the taxes? Now you have that $2 million that you didn't have to pay the taxes on, compounding with interest every year for the next 10 years. And if you took those dollars, let's say you made 7% a year just for simple math, and now it's doubled, that $2 million is now $4 million. If you paid the tax bill, you don't have that $4 million anymore, let alone the $2 million. Okay. So why wouldn't we do that? And it's a purposeful trust that is created through lots of different things that we'll talk about when you come in the office that pays you income too in retirement. And it's deferral of taxes. And then when you pass away, your kids can have it, or they can cash it out then. So, and then the thing is, there's fees in them, right? But if you retire and you go work with a big bank or brokerage firm, you're paying 1 to 1.5% anyways, right? It's about the same. So why not save the taxes, do what you're going to do anyways, keep more money in your pocket, because we know how to do this, and work with Zinnia Wealth Management. And so that's the killer thing about it, is because yes, the fees are incredibly low, in my opinion, and you don't pay the tax bill. Go ahead, Randy.
So the word deferred is in there, and that means that the taxes are deferred until a later time.
Correct.
So are you saying that we put this money, we defer it, we grow it, and then we pay the taxes later when we have more money, I guess? Is that kind of the idea here?
Yeah, so it's a deferral of income.
Okay.
And so it allows you to stretch the taxes as long as you're breathing, and as long as your beneficiaries are breathing, and it goes generations and generations. That's the cool thing about it.
Okay.
So really, the only rule that you have to know about, and this is typical with these types of things, is that by the third year, while you're doing this, you have to start taking income, right? Okay. And it'll be, let's say the promissory note says, hey, we're going to make you an average of 5%. We got to at least take that 5% out, right? Starting the third year, but you can take it sooner. So you're just living off your income.
And that's taxable. I see.
Okay. And yeah, and your income's taxable. Got it. But you're not paying $2 million on your income, right? You're paying 20% on maybe the $400,000 you have to take out.
So you're avoiding that huge 1 year event that could really, really hurt. And you work your entire life and you don't want to pay all that money in taxes. That's not the payoff. The payoff is supposed to be, I sell my business, I use that in retirement.
Exactly. And that's all people want is paychecks, right? And they want to make sure that they leave some money for the kiddos. And it's a neat strategy. And if you had the choice to go to a big bank or brokerage and just walk away with $3 million and give Uncle Sam $2 million, it's not the prudent decision for most people. Some people maybe so, right? But most people no, because why would we give $2 million away if we actually didn't have to?
Got it.
And then it's yours forever. Plus, it's going to grow.
So this is something that you could talk to Charisse about. Many people, I mean, of all the years that we've been doing this show, we're kind of in almost a peak right now of that baby boom generation. They're turning 65, 66, 67. We're getting to that point where people are really starting to walk away from work. You may say, well, I'm just going to keep working in retirement years. Well, now we're getting to that point where people are going to start walking into retirement. And if you have a business, that brings up a lot of complications and a lot of tax ramifications. So
it does. And don't forget, if you're selling stock or you're part of a firm like that, as having turnover, if you're selling your business, if you have a lawsuit, you're about to come into some money. That all is the same stuff. If you got big commercial buildings you're trying to sell, right? The rule of thumb is, as long as you have $500,000 in capital gains or more, it totally makes sense.
Give us a call. Let's find out the details, see if it's something that you would be interested in and if it works for you. Give us a look on our website. It is zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com, or 833-368-3680, and talk through that with Charisse. That is all the time we have on today's show. It goes by so quickly, and the conversation is lively today. It might have been the ice bath. I'm not exactly sure.
It's the cold plunge, Randy. Oh my gosh, you're right. I'm very loud today. Oh wow, maybe the cold plunge isn't good. I'm just kidding.
I'll give you the last word on this one for today.
Hey, thank you all. We got some great questions in this week, and again, keep emailing them or going to our website and typing in questions you want us to ask on the radio show. It was lovely to be able to provide that to our listeners this week. And don't forget to go to our podcast, Retirement Coffee Talk. You can find us on Apple, iTunes, iHeart, you name it. But don't go to Google because it's coming off of Google. And you can hear our past episodes and at your time. You don't have to do it in the car. So again, live by design, not by default. And we will see you here next week.
This has been Retirement Coffee Talk. To find out more about how the strategies we've discussed on this program can build the retirement you've been wanting, call Zinnia Wealth at 352-368-3680 or visit us online at zinniawealth.com.
Sharice Rivers is an investment advisor representative of Zinnia Wealth Advisory, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed should not be considered investment advice or recommendation to buy or sell any financial vehicle. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Investments can fluctuate and when redeemed may be worth more or less than when originally invested. Financial professionals are not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if Sharice Rivers is licensed in your state, please contact their office. Zinnia Wealth Advisory, LLC is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company. Any client experiences discussed during this show are unique to that client. They are not meant to imply or suggest you will experience the same results. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through Sharice Rivers, NPN Insurance License Number 8718011.